Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Magoon Squad. As you can see, we got Mr. Bobby back here on the show after a couple days off. So it's good to have you back, Bobby.
What up, man?
All righty. So let's go ahead and get into our first topic that I think is pretty interesting. It is, of course, Bobby knows as an Eagles fan, Jahan Dotson just got traded to the Eagles. But really,
Yes.
what I want to ask you, Bobby, as a fan, is what does that mean for Hurts in the offense? Do you see a more productive offense than last year? Now that you have two really good receivers and a third solid option, or is it kind of just the same? I mean,
I think it actually helps us, honestly. I mean, I understand, like, as the look of last year, maybe, he wasn't as good as, people thought. But I think with our team, especially him, like, working with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, I feel like he's going to, actually have a good role in our offense. So I'm cool with it. I mean, the
well,
more the
yeah, I
merrier.
mean, there's really no like a lose lose situation there. It's a win for y'all. But so like
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts only threw 3,800 passing yards. Do you think he hits the 4,000 mark this year with the offensive weapons he has now?
I
Or
mean, honestly, I mean I don't really care. Like, honestly, I actually hope we run the ball more like this year. So maybe he won't hit that, or maybe he might just get the same. But
yeah,
I want us to use a running back Saquon, because last year we didn't even really use the DeAndre Swift like that, and I wish we did. We just kept throwing the ball all the time. But I don't know. I mean, I just if he hits four, he hits four. It doesn't really matter. All we just need to get back to that Super Bowl. That's all. That's all that matters. So.
well, and my biggest thing is like I was looking at your 2023 year last year. The offense wasn't really productive in the sense of like scoring points. I mean, you guys lost to the Giants week 18, only put up 10 points, but that was the game that Hurts was out. I'm pretty sure they played their bench players, I think, just because they were making the postseason. But regardless, like, you didn't really score over, I would say 35 was your highest point cap. For instance, that 49ers game on week 13, it was 42-19. Does this give you hope that you guys can score with teams if your defense is not showing up? Or is this more of less of like, do you still feel like the offense might struggle to move the ball a little bit? Because last year, a lot of the losses were like 19 points in the loss, 13 points in the loss, 17, 10 points in the loss, and 14 points in the loss. Do you think that is going to change? Like, for instance, do you think losing this year, you'll lose with at least 20 or more points scored? Like, do you think the offense will keep up with the offense that you're playing against?
Oh, for sure, definitely this year because our offense is better. So
Yeah.
I feel like we can keep up with any offense in the league, honestly. So, um,
Even like the Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, teams like that
mhm,
put up around 40-ish points a game, close to like 500 yards a game.
for sure, 100%.
So you're pretty confident on that for sure.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
that was my biggest thing. I think that's why personally I was kind of excited for the trade for y'all is because your offense was struggling to keep up with other teams when the defense wasn't showing up. Those losses were like 42 points, 33 points, 35-point loss. Like it was the defense not showing up, but then it's also like the offense needs to show up when they don't. So I think hopefully from what I can see with the roster, it should you got a good running back core to rotate in and out. You got good receivers to set up whatever play you want. And then, of course, Dallas Goddard still there as a tight end, so you could still pass block heavy with him as a tight end and just run three wide receivers now. So do a little heavier package. But
Mm-hmm.
so we like the trade. But moving on to topic number 2 of the show, and this one's kind of a bigger one for me because I've actually had this question from other people recently. Do we think the Jets, just because Aaron Rodgers is healthy and back, do we think the Jets are a playoff team? Are they in position to make a playoffs like overall of their team?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, I feel like that's the only thing that's missing to the Jets team is just a quarterback.
You think so?
That's Yeah. I mean, their defense was, you know, they held up good. Like, I mean, they did the best you can. But I mean, if you don't have a, if you're not moving the ball on offense, the defense can only do so much. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers is the missing piece to the whole team. So
Yeah, it's tough for me because I'm looking at their roster, and it just to me it looks like their offensive line's just a little young. But they did pick Tyrone Smith up from Dallas, who's their offensive tackle now, which should help shore up some of that edge rush that they've been pressured with. But I think I'm not gonna lie, like if Brees Hall doesn't stay healthy, they're lacking in running back depth. They don't have a lot of depth of running back. And then at the same time, well, I mean, the only other one is Israel Abandakanda and Isaiah Davis behind Brees Hall.
I
So I
think
mean, at
there's
quarterback
room
they're
for
at
you know.
quarterback they're fine. They got Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Travis, which obviously is a good backup to have. And then I don't know. At receiving, besides Garrett Wilson, I'm not really crazy about Mike Williams either, just because of an injury-prone situation that he's usually in. And same with Alan Lazard. I know him and Rodgers have that connection from Green Bay, but it's more or less of the situation again. It's like, is that good enough? Are they good enough throughout the whole year to put this team in a playoff situation? Um,
I think. Well, I think going back to the running back situation, they do have a dude out of Wisconsin named Braylon Allen. He's looking really good, especially in preseason. So I feel like he can take the load, and just in case if Brees Hall does get hurt, um, I do like Tyler Conklin, their tight end. He's not really used that much in the offense, but I feel like he does his jobs when whenever he's throwing the ball, he catches it like he does what he needs to do. If Mike Williams does stay healthy, I feel like he's gonna take that off the offense to the next level because he does have a history of injury bug. But
well,
um,
and for me, it's just looking on their defense. I know it doesn't really matter, but it's like their linebacking core is not crazy. It's not great. It's a bunch of like I guess the best linebacker on that team right now would be probably C.J. Mosley or Quincy Williams maybe, but other than that, I mean, it's nothing crazy. But you of course Jets picking up Hassan Riddick from the Philadelphia Eagles to go with that front defensive line core there with Javon Kinlaw as well coming from San Francisco. So I'm not, and Quentin Williams is still there. I'm not questioning their front four. It's really just their secondary I have worry about.
hmm.
Safety wise, I mean Chuck Clark is still decent. He's a veteran kind of player. But other than that, I mean Tony Adams is okay. I mean safety wise, they're not deep either. There's no like, in my opinion, if if um, Sauce Gardner doesn't make a play for them, or DJ Reed maybe doesn't make a play for them on the outside, I don't really know if any of their safeties that they have is one of those playmakers, that in the big moments will come up big for them. It to me, they're all young. You got at their safety position, you got three rookies. One veteran is Chuck Clark with 8 years, and then the other two with like 3 to 5 years of like maybe backup experience. Uh, so it's really, I'm not saying that their defense is bad because their defense shows up every year. It's just they're a little thin at safety and then as well as linebacker. Linebacker, I don't really see anyone like, there's no Logan Wilson to make a big play. There's no Patrick Queen. There's no these guys, these linebackers that aren't like superstars, but like aren't, you know, good enough. Are they good enough to make the big plays when it matters, kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I just feel like they're running a 4-3, so I feel like they're really betting on their front four.
Front
If they
four,
can,
yeah.
if they can, so because if you get pressure on a quarterback, the quarterback's gonna make a bad throw for the secondary. So I just really feel like if they can figure out the Hassan Reddick situation and get him out there, I feel like they're gonna be okay defensively. Honestly, they're
Well,
just looking at it a different perspective.
well, yeah, and my thing is I'm not worried so much as about putting pressure. It's the fact that can their secondary contain, like the Bills, for instance, can they contain Josh Allen throwing it downfield, throwing for like 300 yards a game when they play him twice a year? Same thing with the Dolphins. Can you contain that offense from moving the ball down the field and two or having a big game? Is that because you're playing them twice a year since they're in your division? Is that something you think they can contain with their front four, or do you think they're going to get a little bit exposed with being thin at secondary there with their safeties?
I think they can contain them, especially that Josh Allen doesn't really have to like. I mean, he really. I only think person really has is that tight end, and then Keon Coleman if he shows that he's a number one receiver. But I don't really. I'm not. I mean, I really feel like Josh Allen's gonna just have to do it. It's gonna be more in his hands. Like he's just gonna have to run and
He's
scramble.
gonna have to ball out. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have a hard time. I feel like he's gonna have a hard time playing the Jets.
Well, and
So
I still think I
and he has
mean
a history of that too, of playing the
Kurt.
Jets. He doesn't really play that well in those games.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, he does turn the ball over a lot, so it kind of does help that he throws a lot of picks. But I will say having Curtis Samuel there with someone like Keon Coleman, who's a nice rookie coming in, who has some not high expectations but big expectations, along with James Cook. I still think there's a lot of good things surrounding. Um, I think there's good things surrounding Josh Allen. The nice thing, and I hate to say this about Stephon Diggs, but I think getting rid of him was the best thing for him because there was so much headbutting against each other, like not getting him the ball when he's open or not hitting him when he wants him to hit him on certain routes. So I think this gives Josh Allen more freedom to run the offense the way he wants and not around Stephon Diggs as much, which in my opinion, that's why I think we might see a different Josh Allen than we've normally seen. And I don't know if many people are talking about that right now. And I've actually heard no one on a sports podcast or show ever mention this. But with Stephon Diggs gone, the offense, yeah, probably not as good. But like I think Josh Allen has the complete freedom to do whatever he wants on offense. I think Doug McDermott finally understands that Josh Allen is the guy for them. So now he's got complete freedom to do whatever he wants. If he wants a design QB run and can't audible out of that if he wants to, but at least he won't have to worry about a receiver throwing a fit every single drive or every other drive about not getting him the ball. Like if he was open, he didn't see him. There's not going to be that power struggle. So now it's all in Josh Allen's hands, which I think could be dangerous for a lot of. I think it's dangerous for a lot of teams. I think we're about to see a different Josh Allen than we've normally seen, personally. So
I agree.
I think it could be almost, I don't want to say better, but I think it could be almost like scary how good this Bills team might be. Truly, I think like I really do think just because Stephon Diggs left does not make them any less good on offense than they were. I mean, is someone gonna get Keon Coleman could be? I'm not saying he could be as good as Stephon Diggs right away, but he could fill that role up very nicely and get open deep downfield, and then have Curtis Samuel run some different routes across the middle that also open up the defense. So I guess we'll see coming in. That's where I'm at with the Jets though. It's just tough having the Dolphins and the Bills in that division, and you guys have like personally you've really struggled against those teams
Mm-hmm.
recently, and even with Rodgers being at his age with the injury that he had, I don't know how good he's going to be when he comes back. I mean,
That is true.
at
That is.
his age and with that injury, and I've heard from like medical professions themselves, it's tough to come back at that age and play at the level you were playing at, especially on a turf field. Now that you're worried about re-injuring that same leg or another leg playing on a turf field, so I don't really know what Aaron Rodgers we're gonna get. Honestly, it could be a really MVP year for Rodgers, or it could be a very mediocre year. So do I think the Jets are in a position to make the playoffs? Sure. Do I think they will? Probably not. I think it's still going to be Bills or Dolphins in that division, just because overall, it just it's just tough. It's just tough because we just don't know what Aaron Rodgers we're going to get, honestly. So
Yes, he's gonna have to just show you then.
I guess he will. If he could put up an MVP year at that age with the injury he had last year, consider me impressed. That's not the expectation I have for him. I hope Jets fans out there, I hope that's not the expectations you have for him either. But I would be impressed, thoroughly impressed. But moving on to our next topic, we're going to get into some college football now. And I think this one's a little bit more interesting because now that we have the 12-team playoff, the four teams that win their conference champ, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, should hypothetically get the bye week. That's what's been proposed, but sometimes it could change. Like a Mountain West team I've saw from some predicted bracket might get the bye week. I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't. But Bobby, what is your thoughts on how much is it going to affect the teams that have to play a game going into, let's just say, for instance, any of those teams like Missouri makes it and they have to play a Florida State or a Clemson team that didn't win the ACC, and then you have to go and play Georgia. Is that one game gonna like hurt the team more, or do you think that's gonna be something that's gonna carry a momentum sort of into the bye week? Because I know college football is very different from pros, right? The way you
It is.
prepare, the way the atmosphere is, everything, you can carry momentum easily into the next game. Do you think that hinders more against the team that has to play, or do you think that hurts the team that's on the bye week?
I'm
And
gonna
it's
say that's a good question. I don't. I guess like I would say it hurts when people are actually on the bye, just because like, mm, yeah, because I feel like you just need momentum. Like you just have to keep winning. Like
yeah,
that morale goes down when you just take a week off.
yeah,
But I guess I'm gonna say yeah. I think college football is more about momentum and winning instead of you just like
preparing.
preparing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm gonna say. I'll say you know.
Well, and I totally agree with you too. Like I am in the side as well as you. Is I think having that first game almost helps a team more than hurts a team with the bye week. And you could say, recovery time, injuries, whatever. Dude, they're like 22, 21 and under. Their bodies can recover quickly. It's not that big of an issue. I think the thing is, and I can speak and attest to this, LSU fans out there can all agree with me. When we play Alabama, we used to play Alabama off of a week, right? We used to play a game and then play Alabama. And then since Alabama had a bye week and then played us, we copied them and switched to that where we have a bye week and then play Bama. And since then, we have not been very good against Bama. I think honestly we were better off playing a game and then playing Alabama the next week because we had that momentum going into the next game and that our players felt confident in themselves. They're not in their headspace, there's not much time to think about all these other things going on. And then my thing too is like, say you're in a bye week, right? You're rooting for which team you want. I know you're not going to supposed to think that. You tell people you're not thinking about that, but the coaches and the players all think about that. They all think about that when they're playing their games. Which team do I want to play? Which teams can we prepare better for? This and that. So I'm with you here, Bobby. I think, going into the college football playoffs, I think we could see a lot more upsets than we have in a 14 playoff or just anything else. I think, and this is definitely a hot take, but I think 3 of the 4 bye week teams could lose their games this year. I genuinely do. I think 3 of the 4 teams that win their conference champ, I think let's just say it's the Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and SEC. I think everyone but the SEC team will lose their game coming out. I could see that easily happening. So depending on how matchups go. But I don't know. Like for instance, Bobby, if you're like, let's take it this way: if you're Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you rather them come into a game, play that, and then play another one, or would you rather them sit there in their own headspace, listening to all the talk about them making it, listening to the expectations of them having to win that game, and then you know,
No, they need to go right straight into it because
mm,
I don't know. They're just too young to like. They're not. I don't think they're like college players aren't like good enough yet to you know just take a break and go. I don't know. I feel like they just gotta go into it. I don't know
well,
because
as
NFL players, there's more veterans. Like they've been in situations like that before, so they know how to prepare and go out there and play. But I feel like college athletes are just too young to like, you know, take in criticism and then like go out and play well. They just have to just go out and just, you know, kind of go off vibes, like, you know, energy. Like they just have to, you know, go off instincts and stuff. So
Yeah.
I would, yeah, that's what I say.
Well, I mean, what's your predictions on that, right? I mean, we have four teams that get a bye week in that first round. Are you with me on like three of the four teams losing, or are you more leaning on, two, maybe one or two losing that first? That's their first game, but second game in the college football playoffs. What's your kind of thoughts on that?
I'll probably say two instead of three.
Two, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's fair
Three is gonna
too.
be crazy. Three will be crazy. If three out of four teams that lose is that's gonna be wild.
Yeah. Well, and it's just interesting too because we're gonna see a lot of teams that normally aren't, like a lot of teams. Well, they're in that situation, in that purgatory situation, is what I call, right? If this was
Mm-hmm.
Missouri, for instance, that we're talking about, they're in purgatory if it was a 14 playoff, right? They are a really good team, but I know for a fact, and you probably can agree with me, if it was still a 14 playoff, there was probably not a good chance that they're going to make it. So now that there is a 12-team playoff, there is a very, very high possibility that they can make it with just the team that they have. So it gives a lot of teams a lot of benefits of trying, instead of just having
Mm-hmm.
that year where it's like, and it's the same thing with LSU or just any team, right? You come to that big game, for instance, Michigan, Ohio State, every single year for since the college football playoffs started in 2015. It's always come that's why it's called the game of the year. It always comes down to those two teams, right? At the last
Yeah.
week of the year, they play each other. One of them loses, one of them wins, and there you go. That's your whole season just done. But now you can lose that. You can afford to lose that game because there's no divisions, right, inside of the conference, which we're going to get into in a minute here. But that now allows you to lose that game and still be able to make it. So I think it gives a lot of more benefits for some teams. But any final thoughts before we move on?
That's no, I'm good, man.
All right, all right. Moving on to our next topic here. Uh, Speaking of what we just talked about, with the new conferences coming in, like Oregon, Washington going to the Big Ten, Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC, uh, what are your thoughts on like key rivalry games just not being present anymore? Right, like LSU Auburn, the Tiger Bowl. It's not happening this year. It's off the schedule, just due to like scheduling reasons of these newer teams. What are your thoughts on kind of like these rival games just not? Some of them are just never going to happen again. Well, I'm not going to say never, but not every single year like it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we just gonna have to get used to it. Like it's just new, so we're gonna have to create new rivalries. You know, I mean, I feel like people aren't gonna forget. Like real fans ain't gonna forget, but I
No.
mean, you just gotta, you know, it's just a new era, so we gotta create more rivalries, basically. So.
And do you think, like, for instance, I already know that from what I've heard, like, say LSU, for instance, right? You got the Magnolia Bowl, Ole Miss LSU. You got the battle for the Golden Boot, Arkansas LSU. Those two are staying for sure. I've heard every single year. Uh, what I've really heard is like Florida, Florida, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Bama. Those are the four teams that I know LSU is going to get every single year, and I think A&M as well. That might be rotated out in and out. But I'm curious to see like if you're like Missouri, right? I don't really know what the rivalry games are. I'm not a fan of them.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a couple of other teams, but like how do you think that comes into account? Like for instance, if I'm an LSU fan, I almost rather have Auburn than Florida, honestly. Just as like a Tiger Bowl kind of thing, right? I get the LSU Florida is a big rivalry, and it has been since like 2010 and the Tebow years, and even before that. But like if A&M is one of them that stays with us, I rather have Auburn. I mean the A&M games that we've had with them have been good. I just don't necessarily call that a rivalry yet, truly.
Mm-hmm. It just
But
don't. It just don't. It don't feel. It just don't feel. You know, right? Because
it doesn't feel normal.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Mizzou's rivalry was Kansas, but they left.
Yeah.
So now Kansas is there just like, sitting chilling right now. But
As
but now, Mizzou's in the SEC. I don't really see I don't know who's gonna be like their, rival in the SEC because they're not really, you know, making a I mean they're on their I feel like they're on their way now. It's like, making their establishing their place in the SEC, but I don't know. They're not like they've been in the SEC long enough to have a rival,
yeah.
So
Well, and it's tough for me too, because and this goes for all Tennessee fans out there, and I'm sure you can agree that from what we are getting with the newer teams is great, but I don't think it's fair to like some fan bases out there, and I don't mean it like fair as like the games aren't going to be great and sold out or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's fair scheduling wise that, for instance, Tennessee, right? They have to keep Bama on the schedule. That's one of the biggest SEC rivals out there. Same with Georgia. Tennessee, Georgia, they've been playing for as long as they've been in that division. So I know for a fact that those two games will always appear on that schedule for Tennessee year in and
mhm.
year out. Uh, like like for instance, when they have to cycle Oklahoma and Texas through that schedule, do you think it's fair to teams like that keep those bigger rivalry games, even though it is a rival game? Do you think it's fair to like Tennessee, for instance, to have to play next year? For instance, they'll have to play Georgia at home, most likely if the schedule is accurate. Georgia at home, at Alabama, and then either versus Texas or at Texas. Is that? Do you think that's fair for Tennessee fans and the Tennessee program to have to play a schedule like that, or would you rather them just get rid of the rival altogether and make it more of
I
a
mean,
balanced schedule?
that's just how it is because they're in that division. So I'm gonna say, they
Well,
don't think it's
they were in that division. They weren't before. Like now they're not. It's just best record go. The two best records go, but before they were, and that's what created that rival. For instance,
this is how it is, man. I mean,
and I mean and you can comment on this too. I Tennessee fans. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but generally next year, I can honestly see Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas being on your schedule because you're playing Oklahoma this year. You're not playing LSU this year. I can see them cycling out maybe Arkansas, and I think you're going to keep Kentucky, but I can see them definitely cycling out Oklahoma and Arkansas out of your schedule for like Texas and Mississippi State as well. So I can definitely see easily LSU, Texas, Georgia, and Bama on that schedule. That right there is just in itself absolutely like there. That is a gauntlet right there. Just having to beat four of those teams right there in a row, or
well,
not in a row, but just through the season.
they gonna have to get them recruits and get the NIL money right, cause. And I mean, this ain't gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not gonna. It's gonna be kind of normal for them now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Playing teams like that, so
And
they got to.
do you think that should be a normal, like what are your thoughts about having these super conferences now? Is that something you like, or did you like it more
I
when there's a
mean,
little bit more balance throughout the conferences?
they're super now, but they're not gonna stay super. I don't think they're gonna stay super.
They are they because they signed the deals with the SEC, for instance. So now they have like a 10-year deal or so with the SEC,
Who does? Oh, the
Texas and
Tennessee.
Oklahoma.
Oh, Texas, Oklahoma. Okay, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like, bro, they can get players to those programs. Like, you know what I'm saying? Especially how like there's like it's. I feel like the SEC is actually like kind of getting more spread out. That's my opinion. Like we
Okay.
don't have Nick Saban. Like coaches, I don't know. Coaches are kind of like moving, and then now we have NIL, bro. Bro, these teams can just get recruits like who they really want. So I feel like it's just. I feel like it's gonna balance it out more. Honestly, that's what I feel like.
Well, and then like in the Big Ten, right? We've heard other teams might join as well. In fact, I've heard rumors of Florida State probably joining the SEC as well. Which, if they join, then that's just like I don't even
No, they
know.
should. They really should
And
though.
they
I think they
should,
should.
they should. But for instance, like the Big Ten, right now you got Michigan, Oregon, Washington, and kind of that in that
Mm-hmm.
conference. So my issue with the Big Ten is, and I've always had this issue is there's only really before Oregon and Washington joined, there's been only really like 2 or 3 good teams in that conference. You know, it's Michigan, Ohio State, and then the occasional Michigan State if they pop up and be good. Wisconsin if they pop up be good. Nebraska if they pop up and be good.
USC
Uh,
not conference.
USC, yeah, they did just join that as well. But
That's what I'm saying. So that's another good team in that conference too.
and now, but I don't think I would sit there. I mean, Penn State as well. Sorry, Penn State fans, I did forget about you. But then again, you tend to choke your ranking quite often. But anyway, do you think it's fair for like, say if you're not Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, the big three, and now Oregon, so like maybe 3 or 4 teams, right? But then you look at the rest: Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin. Do you think teams like that even have a possibility or a chance to even compete in that conference anymore? With Oregon, USC, Washington, all these teams coming over, UCLA, does the Rutgers, does the Northwestern teams like that, Maryland, Indiana, teams like that, do they even have a chance to compete? Because I put them on the same level as Vanderbilt in the SEC.
But they weren't really doing nothing before that anyway though.
They weren't. They weren't.
No, that's
But
what I'm saying. So it's like they just got to stay there and just take it because they weren't putting before them teams got in that conference. They weren't doing nothing anyway.
well, Nebraska was for a while. Nebraska was really good for a while,
But
and then Wisconsin when they had Russell Wilson and Melvin Gordon come through and
how
played
long ago
there.
was that,
But
bro? How long ago
it
was
was long ago. But now I'm saying like
that? That's what I'm saying.
looking at this, do you think they can ever get back to something like that, or if now is it going to be more heavy on the Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State teams, where the recruiting wise they just don't have a chance?
I mean, those teams. Now look, I mean no, but I'm gonna say that those teams, those Rutgers, Wisconsin, whatever, they can gladly upset any of those powerhouse schools, bro.
That's
I'm not gonna
tough.
say
That's
like
tough to say.
I'm just saying, like you said, bro, like a Melvin, like they have some like Melvin Gordon or whatever, like that goes to their team that just dominates. They can do that.
They could really very well. It's just
I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen like every season, but it can happen. I mean, it's
it's
possible, but people be losing in college football like it's nothing. Like
it, and that's
you know
true.
what I'm saying?
It's just tough
This
for
ain't the
me.
NFL. Anybody can lose. Really in any sport now, anybody can lose. Like
Yeah,
that's like it's getting more competitive, which that's why I feel like they're putting more better teams in those conferences to make the games more competitive.
it's just tough for me, like because I know exactly what you're saying, and I do agree with
Yeah.
you. It is a more competitive, more challenging schedule for these teams. It gives them a better look and a better challenge. It's just tough for me though because when I look at the odds, like just the spreads and the odds on some of these games, even a Michigan team with a new coach and a lot of players leaving to the draft, they're still favored by 20 against most of these teams at home or away. They're still favored by 20 to beat them. And the only times I ever see that in the SEC is literally only maybe Mississippi State now, but when they had Will Rogers there, it wasn't like that. But the only teams I really see that against is literally Vanderbilt. Like right now in the SEC, the only odds that are like minus 20 or even close is Vanderbilt. Other than that, every single team in that SEC is -7, maybe -9.5, 8.5, something like that. But it's still close.
But then again, like you saying, going back to what you're saying, like the smaller schools or whatever have a chance. Bro, people like seeing the rivalries of the worst schools. Like, I mean, they
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like those game like the bad schools or whatever you're
Like
saying.
Wisconsin, Nebraska, right? That's
Right. People
yeah.
like seeing those games too because they're competitive because they both suck. You know what I'm saying? Like people like seeing that. So
And
I
it's
mean,
just
that's why I just feel like it doesn't. It's not even if they don't like have a chance of winning, people are still going to come out to those games because they're going to be better games for like the worst team. So
and it's just hard because like dude, it's like 10 out of the 25 teams are literally SEC teams in the top 25 right now, which is honestly crazy because it's just
that's just the era we're in
and,
right now, bro. It didn't used to
and
be like that 10 years ago, though. It didn't used to be
well,
like that.
and I'm gonna be honest. the thing that really would solidify me personally to make it more even, like, and I don't mean even in the sense of the bad teams having a chance, but to make it even between the SEC and Big Ten as far as the competition goes, because I still think the SEC is the most dominant. If the Big Ten really wants to get on that level, I think you have to find a way to get Notre Dame into the Big Ten somehow. If you can get Notre Dame into the Big Ten, and if you can get maybe a Clemson into the Big Ten from the ACC that has talked about moving as well, I I generally can see them being almost on the same level as the SEC then, with Notre Dame coming in and Clemson coming in.
I don't think so, bro.
Well, I mean, Clemson's ranked 14th right now. Notre Dame
That's
is
fine,
ranked
bro.
7th.
I don't think.
So,
I don't think Notre Dame's is probably right, but I don't know about Clemson, bro. They.
well, if Dabo Swinney can get him back into that swing, and the program can get back into where Dabo Swinney had him with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, maybe it would be on the same field. But you're right. With just Notre Dame, it wouldn't. But if it was Clemson with like Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson era, it probably would be on the same level as the SEC then. If they had them in the Big Ten with all these other teams, personally, me,
That's what I'm saying. Like they not there yet. So I don't
they're
know.
not. And they could. Like I said, they could get there, and they are trying to get there. But and that's really my thing too. Is like it's interesting because we talk about that and looking. Let's just take the top 10 for instance, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got 4 SEC teams in the top 10 and 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10 with Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is 7th, right? But they're independent. They're not in the conference. What I'm saying is if you add Notre Dame right now, technically in the top 10 would be 5 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC teams. If Notre Dame were to join the Big Ten, that's what the rankings, preseason rankings, would look like. That's what I'm saying. Like they could be on that level if they were to get Notre Dame, and if Clemson, for instance, who's ranked 14th right now, if they finish in the top 15 or the top 10 this year, and like I said, if they join the Big Ten, it could be very interesting to see the power dynamic between those two conferences. Very interesting.
But then I like see. Look, then the Big 12. Like you got teams like Kansas. Like, bro, Kansas is good. Is a good football school now, bro.
I
You
think
know what
they
I'm
need
saying?
to stay in the Big 12 though, personally.
You said they do.
Yeah,
Yes, what I'm saying. Like they're in like Oklahoma State, Kansas State, like Utah. They're all like those programs are getting they stuff together. Now you got my boys in there too, Colorado. Like you see, like that's why they're those conferences are getting better. They're getting more fun to watch.
and
It
they
only
are,
takes
and the games are getting better. It's just the sense of like,
exactly.
yeah. But my thing is when you get to the college football playoffs, it usually is SEC dominated. It has been for years past. Uh, what I'm trying to say is, do you think we'll see? Like I said, technically speaking, it's 4-4 right now in the top 10. Do you think the college football playoff is going to be SEC dominated this year, or more even across the board? Like
I'm
maybe
gonna say, I'm gonna
see.
say it's even. I'm gonna say it's even.
So you're thinking like maybe 4 Big 10 teams, 4 SEC teams, a couple like 2 ACC teams, and like 2 or 3 Big 12 teams, or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
I
Is
don't
that
understand why. Yeah, I do say that, but I don't understand why. Like, there's only why is there only like for the Notre Dame conference, only 2 teams in there or 3 teams in there.
independent conference means they can schedule whoever they want, and they're not bound by any conference regulation or rules to adhere to.
But
Like
why do they have? Why out of all the conferences, why do they have that?
because they've been an independent for ever since they've been a school for the most part. I mean,
So is that the same with like Pac-12,
Uh, no,
like
no,
Oregon
no,
State and Washington
no.
State?
So independent, like I said, independent, they're bound by no conference regulations, right? So that's why you see on their schedule, for instance, Louisville and Stanford are ACC teams, so they're playing ACC teams, right? But then they also play A&M, and they play, you know, USC, so they play a Big Ten team in USC and Purdue, and then they play A&M and an SEC team. Florida State, ACC, so they can choose their own schedule throughout that year. They're bound by no schedule. They're bound by no, like most of the time for instance, like we talked about earlier on the show, right? LSU is
Mm-hmm.
locked into Bama, they're locked into Florida, they're locked into Ole Miss and Arkansas. They're locked into those teams for as far as I know because of the rival games and just overall the scheduling. Same thing with Tennessee, they're locked into Georgia, locked in. So, but then they have to fill the rest of their schedule with other SEC teams, right? It's only those first 3 or 4 weeks that you can schedule non-conference opponents. But with Notre Dame being an independent, they can schedule whoever they want. It doesn't have to be an ACC. It doesn't have to be. It could be whoever they want, whenever they want, week in and week out. So
They need. I feel like they need to get rid of that and just move
and
into.
and I agree because I also saw just recently a speaking of that, and that's a good point you brought up, Bobby, because UConn has actually talked about joining the Big 12, which is of course Kansas. You know, you have Kansas, Texas Tech, teams like that, and
Mm-hmm.
not from the football aspect that's going to be good for them, but from since they're an independent school, I think basketball wise, if they were to join the Big 12 with Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, teams like that, especially how good UConn is at basketball, women's basketball, and men's basketball, I think that could be a really interesting thing for them to join the Big 12, honestly. And if UConn leaves the independent and it's just Notre Dame and UMass, I don't see. That's what I'm saying. I can very much see Notre Dame joining the Big Ten by the end of this year, if not next year.
Yeah, have Notre Dame join the Big Ten, and then um have Oregon State.
They're not leaving the Pac-12. They've already said that they're going to rebuild the Pac-12 with the Mountain West Conference. They're going to move
Yeah,
that Mountain West Conference over into the Pac-12, is from what I've heard.
yeah.
So
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't understand. That's just they need to. Oh, so, okay. They're about to move. Okay, I see what you're saying. The Mountain
yeah,
West. Right.
so UConn, literally just like maybe 2 or 3 hours ago, they are planning on joining the Big 12. I think at the end of the year, like the end of the football year, I believe, or maybe the basketball year. I'm not really sure. Um, but I think Notre Dame should join the Big Ten. Honestly, I think Notre Dame is time for them to solidify themselves in a conference and might as well be the Big Ten with Michigan, Ohio State, and whatnot.
The SEC should just have only ranked teams.
And that's my biggest thing. I think Florida State should move to the A. Or sorry. I think Florida State should come to the SEC, and then Vanderbilt should move to the ACC because Vanderbilt is one of those. And I don't think it's going to happen because Vanderbilt brings in too much money. In the sense of when I say brings in money, is some teams will pay to play like Vanderbilt sometimes just because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's a yeah. So do I think Vanderbilt will leave the SEC? No. But what I can hypothetically see happening is Florida State coming over and Vanderbilt going to the ACC, which would be way better for them. You know, you got Boston College, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech. Teams kind of like them, where they're not great at any sport really in that sense, but they're good enough to make it a competition. But my biggest thing is just Vanderbilt's good at SEC baseball. They're like one of the best baseball teams out there in the SEC. And basketball, they used to be pretty solid at basketball as well for a time. So even though they're not good at football, I think that's the whole reason we're not dictating their move to the ACC around football. As a program itself in other athletic departments, they excel at things like golf, for instance. I see a lot of golfers uh, on the PGA Tour, like come from Vanderbilt, as well as baseball. Everyone from around the Nashville area goes to Vanderbilt to play baseball. I mean, it's just that, or goes to Knoxville and play baseball. It's kind of just the thing to do around here, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll figure it out either way. So,
They got Penn State at 8. That's crazy.
but moving
They,
on.
go ahead.
Moving on to our final topic, and this is the one I really want to dive into a little bit, and I do have it pulled up as well so we can talk about it. NIL players like Nico and on Tennessee there, he's finally getting the full starting position for the entire year. He hasn't had that since, the other quarterbacks have been there. Uh, what is your expectation for them? Like, you're getting paid all this money to come play for your school, for the school. I'm not gonna say your school because you are getting paid to come play there. But for instance, like Nico is 1 point. His value is at 1.3. I do remember his NIL deal was around 8 million over the 4 years. What's the expectation then? You're getting paid all this money to come play for that school. Where's the expectation fall on Nico and this Tennessee team, for instance, or players like him to perform uh, for the money? What's the expectation? Do you think it has to be a championship, a Heisman, or are they just paying him to come there and play and do the
That's a
best he can?
cornerback, right?
The quarterback, yeah.
Man, I mean, they gonna have to ball out, bro. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, if you're getting paid that money, the fans gonna want you to, perform. So that's just, I don't know, bro. Like, you never know what players' intentions. Like, that's the only bad thing about like NIL now. Is like players can just really just be playing for money, not for like actually like loving the sport.
Yeah.
But that's why it's kind of hard to like you don't know what's going on in their heads. But I mean, that is because like, bro, imagine like you had an opportunity to get that paid that much like now, bro. Aren't you? You're in school right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You just get that money like that money now. You might just say forget it. Like I already got my money. I'm good. Yada yada. But I don't know. It's just that's a lot of money for what year is he?
I believe now he's either a redshirt freshman or a redshirt sophomore. I believe just because he did sit behind a couple of quarterbacks in his first couple of years. But no, I definitely agree. But where your expectations are for him? Like, do you think it's a national champ? Do you think it's a Heisman? Do you like where's that fall under for him?
Uh,
He's a freshman, by the way, a redshirt freshman, I
I
believe.
don't think he's
So
gonna not next. So this season coming, I don't think he's gonna be any of that. Um, I don't really know too much about him. So, but I'll say maybe we'll see like his junior year
well,
or
he's real quick. I'll just say he's a 5-star quarterback out of California that I believe was either number one in the class and in position, or at least number one or two in the position and like top 10 in the class of that year.
okay.
So a guy like that, for instance, right? I mean, do you consider the NIL deal to be a failure if he doesn't give you? Because I'm sure the fans in the program and the head of the department of football operations or just the athletic director, I'm sure they're all thinking like our expectation for him is to win us a national champ or a Heisman or something along those lines. Would you consider a failure? Do you think, like, for instance, do you think it's fair to call him, like, say he puts up insane numbers, right? But he's playing in
Mm-hmm.
the SEC. The team doesn't get the job done. He puts up great numbers, but the team doesn't get the job done. Would you is it fair to say that he failed at what he came here to do and that the deal was a failure, or are you going to sit there and say like he did the best he could, but we put ourselves in the best situation by paying him and he did the best he could? Where do you fall on that, and where do you think the fans fall on that? Like a
I
passionate
mean,
fan.
I feel like he's gonna be okay, bro. Like even if he doesn't like put up the numbers this freshman year, I feel like he eventually will.
Well, I'm
And
just
like
throughout his
another
whole
thing,
college career,
huh?
just through the whole college career, like
Oh
where.
yeah, I feel like yeah. Okay, well I'm gonna say like his college career he eventually gets to that level. I would say he gets to that level, like Heisman, a national champ. Not probably this year coming up season, but you know years to come, like his years down the road. And on top of that, like with the NIL stuff, like that be making players go to that school too. You know what I'm saying? Because they want to play with Nico.
Yeah.
That got signed with Beats by Dre. You know what I'm saying? Because they think that's hard. So I mean, so Tennessee giving out money is it's like it's a good marketing strategy for players to come to the schools because they could eventually get ranked and they got their quarterback. All I need is like a couple pieces they sign with them, and which makes Nico better and gets them to that championship Heisman's level. So
Well, and that's that like to lead into the other question. Like, do you think I'm just saying throughout his whole career there, right? Say he plays from freshman to junior and or senior year. Say he doesn't win a Heisman, say he doesn't win them a national champ, and it just doesn't really work out. But he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, right? But he just doesn't.
mm-hmm.
He just can't win a Heisman. He just can't
What
win
if he's
that
in a
national
race? What if
champ.
he's in a race?
Just in the race. That's what I'm saying. Like he's in the race, one of the best, but he doesn't win
Okay.
it, right? He doesn't win it any of the years
Yeah.
he's in it, or he doesn't win, or he does win a Heisman, but doesn't win them a national champ, right? What I'm asking is like, would you? I'm just saying personally, you first. Would you
Mm-hmm.
consider that a failure, or would you consider that we put ourselves in the best situation possible with Nico and it just didn't work out? And then from a fan perspective, as like a diehard fan, a passionate fan, would you call Nico a failure and the deal a failure and say like the team failed at what they're trying to do by paying him that money, or would you say the same thing? Like, they put themselves in the best situation they can. It just didn't work out, kind of thing.
I
What's
don't
your
think
take on that?
I don't think he's gonna be a failure, bro. From both perspectives, honestly, like
If he,
you can
yeah,
you understand these players they're only like 20 some years old, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a lot to give on somebody. But I understand they getting paid that money, but they're still human. Like they can't, they only can help so much.
yeah.
And injuries play a part of sports all the time, so you never know with that too. So I mean, so I don't think he's a failure, bro. I feel like they have to take a risk, you know, um, give him the NIL money, and fans are just gonna have to live with it. Honestly, so. But
So
I would say he's a failure.
yeah, so to go on off of that, so like that I agree too. Like to me personally, if y'all don't win a national champ with him, but he wins a Heisman or doesn't win a Heisman, but like we said in the race, and you do make it to the playoffs every year you're with him, I don't think that's a fail. I don't think that's a fail at all. I think you're paying him money to put yourself in the best position possible. And like Bobby said, which was a great point, people want to come play for him. So now you have other recruits coming to play for Tennessee and Nico to surround themselves with the best possible situation. But I just know, and I'm talking to fans directly of Tennessee, I just know there's going to be some of y'all out there that are going to call Nico a failure, probably slide up in his Instagram DMs, be like, we paid you $8 million to not win us a national champ. And then you're going to,
Bruh.
you're going to have, I just know there's going to be people like that that are
Yeah.
going to be frustrated that a guy that the school spent $8 million, or not the school, but the fund that they used to pay him $8 million to come and play for Tennessee. I just know for a fact there's going to be people that are going to be pretty mad if it doesn't work out. But I don't think, like you said, right? That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. He's just going there to play ball. Even if he's getting the bag or not. It's just one of those things. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's nothing
And
he
y'all
can
gonna be
do about
ranked.
it.
Y'all gonna be ranked for sure.
Yeah,
I
every
mean,
single year. Yeah.
y'all could be top 10. Y'all could really be top 5. Like you never know with him.
But it's
So that's
just
the thing.
it's just one of those. Like I said, this is his first full year. We can't really judge. I'm not gonna judge, and I'm sure Bobby here is not gonna judge either off of his first year, a full year of the SEC until maybe his second year is when we kind of can see if he's like the real deal, or gonna live up to that expectation. Uh, but I mean, I don't know. I just think it goes for any NIL player, right? I mean, it really does. Like, for instance, Carson Beck's earning NIL money, Jalen Milrose earning NIL money, Arch Manning, for instance, as well. Dylan Gabriel out at Oregon got some NIL money to go to Oregon in the transfer. I don't think, like, if you pay him to come there, that's on you. You know, if anyone's the
Right.
failure, it's whoever paid him the money, right? It's not the player's fault that he couldn't live up to the expectation that you guys set, which in my opinion, in the SEC especially, there's just bars being set way too high for some whatever reason. I don't understand why. Like I really just don't get it. Like Tennessee fans, I've heard and I'm sure you've heard Tennessee fans too, Bobby. Around here, there's always Tennessee talk. I can't tell you how many times I've heard Tennessee fans like, we're always gonna be in the hunt. We're contenders. In the last few years we should have made it. We should have won it. This and that and stuff like that going through their heads, and they're now you just have this expectation for a new quarterback coming in for the first like full year, who hasn't played any SEC ball, and you're over here already trying to make an expectation on the year, saying that y'all should make the playoffs or you should make it at least second, third round in the playoffs. It's like chill the expectations a little bit. It's like the kid hasn't even played a full year yet, and what is that gonna do to him when you go in there and it's you go in there and you already is sending a message like you need to make this or else it's a failed year.
Not now. If Nico's over here BSing like on on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, then yes, the fans need to get on him, bro. They need to get on.
We're talking like who's the guy that did the videos, the player that did the like Juju Smith-Schuster. That was BSing.
That's what I'm saying, bro. If he doing some Chase Claypool and Juju stuff, bro, he doing all that, bro. Yes, or I mean Jared McCain. But Jared McCain backed himself up. But I don't know, bro. If he doing some BS, bro, and they losing, and he's on TikTok doing these stuff, and I don't know, bro. He got getting caught, getting arrested or something like that, bro. Then yeah, the fans need to be in the DMs and be on him, bro. But if he's locked in and he's just not performing like that, then it's what it is. Like,
I hope you guys. I guess that covers all the topics. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Of course, we'll be back next week, taking the weekend off, like usual. Bobby should be here Monday, maybe. It depends what the topics we're going to be discussing. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode today, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bobby, give them a peace out, man.
peace, y'all.